News.
Mm. Good evening, all. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Tell you what, you've got to forgive me tonight. Because I haven't even shaved. And I look like a wreck. So please forgive me. Anyway. Oh, Susan Leigh. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Stevie. Standards are slipping, aren't they? Standards are slipping.
I know, but you can't help it.
What can I say? Yeah.
Next week I will be here with a tie.
Quite right, too. Next Monday is a bank holiday, actually. So I don't know if you're going to be here or not, but we'll see.
We'll be here for bank holiday Monday.
Fair enough.
What are we talking about tonight, Susan?
Well, I thought 31st of August is the 25th anniversary of Princess Diana dying. And I know that often when celebrities die, people are incredibly affected by it. And it's an interesting concept that people are so affected by Michael Jackson or whoever, Meatloaf or whoever it might be, that has been a huge part of Olivia Newton-John. You know, we have stories, we built up whole, the hypno word is fantasies. We build up whole constructs around what people mean to us and for us. And you often look at, for example, soap stars and the characters they portray. And if one of those is killed off, as part of the storyline, it can be devastating. Or a boy band breaks up. Again, devastating. So I thought we might talk today about the significance, the relevance, the impact that it has on us when a famous celebrity dies, and what's that all about. So I thought it could be interesting to look at that today.
Well, many people kind of was upset when Elvis died, didn't they?
Absolutely, and that was his anniversary. I think it was last weekend as well. So I guess, looking at what these people mean to us, they might be a significant part of our lives. They may have associations with significant events that we have with a pop star, a singer. It can be that their music represented a time of our life when we were away at university, or when we met our partner, or our youth, or whatever it might be. It might be that a character in a story, in a soap opera, in a series, had a particular set of circumstances that reflected on us, or that we felt very akin with, very involved with. And so if those people are, actually die, whether it's the truth of it as a human being, or whether their character is killed off, it can be that we absolutely grieve above and beyond. And I think that the point of that is that people tend to grieve. I mean, like, for example, with Princess Diana, she was portrayed as this 16, even now it's happening again, this 16-year-old girl who met this 30-year-old man who effectively courted her, wooed her, promised her all sorts of different things. She was emotionally vulnerable. And so people get very entangled with that story. They feel very affected by it. They feel very aggrieved on her behalf. And a lot of that goes along with the whole story that we construct about it, and how affected we are when something happens like her death.
The trouble is with Diana's death, though, there's a lot of people saying different things about it. Was it set up?
Yeah, absolutely.
For the monarchy.
Yeah. I mean, did they want to get rid of her? I mean, that's the whole mystery behind it, which I suspect we'll never really know. But I think just as it was, when you look back on that day, that weekend, and most people remember where they were when they heard the news, and you woke up in the morning and all the radio stations were just playing funeral music all day, funereal music all day long, and the whole nation went into grieving, and flowers, acres of flowers outside the various places, the various castles, and the boys, are they coming back to London or not? So without even the story about how she died or why she died or whether it was set up or not, I think the whole thing of her being perceived very much as a wronged young mother with two young boys, and then the boys walking behind the funeral coffin. And so, but I think the thing with celebrities dying is that we are all given permission to grieve by proxy. So an awful lot of the tears are, yes, we're sorry for her, but how can we be sorry for somebody we don't know? So we're grieving for the story that we feel relates to what we're connecting with. So we're relating to that poor girl, and how misled and how used and abused she was, and the life she lived, and all these different things. And I think that happened with people like Michael Jackson or Elvis or Olivia Newton-John recently, or even Dame Deborah James, Dame Deborah James, who was the Bowel Babe. We connect with these people on a very emotional level, and we grieve. We allow perhaps feelings that we're not feeling ourselves, or our own situations that are perhaps boxed off, because personal stories are very complicated. I'm grieving for my mother, for example, and the reason is, but then again, she wasn't always a nice person, or she was ill for a long time, or she's going now to meet Dad, or whatever. There can be all complicated layers with our own personal stories. And I think when we're grieving for a celebrity, somebody we don't know or only know fleetingly through the press, a documentary, a life story, a bio or something, we can just grieve for that on a more simplistic level, and it allows our own feelings to come out. And I think that is the role that often celebrity does have for us, that we actually are allowed, enabling ourselves to grieve by proxy in a different way, a more direct way than we perhaps do in our own personal situations, in our own personal lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think we need Diana's in this country.
Diana, what? Sorry.
We need more of them.
We need more people to die. I think.
No, not to die. Sorry, no. No, we need more Lady Diana in this country.
Absolutely. And so when we have these special people who embody all sorts of different things, I think Kate Middleton, to some extent, is becoming that always smiling, always happy, always has time for people, doesn't appear to ever put a foot wrong, smiles at kids and kneels down next to them. I'm not being a cynical person. I see that as her being genuinely, or as genuinely as she can be, involved in what she's doing, and doing a job, taking it very seriously. But I think we relate to these people. We think, oh, isn't she lovely, and what a lovely person, and she's a great mom, and she wears British clothes, and so a lot of the stuff she wears she's worn more than once, and sometimes she shops at high street shops. So there's a construct going on there, and we lose sight of the fact that it's very managed. She is. This is what you're going to wear, and I don't know how much decision making she has involved with that, but there's certainly a very tightly choreographed pictorial of what we are presented with, whoever it might be. And so when we see pop stars or actors and actresses, or even roles on TV that are being portrayed, they're very tightly choreographed so that we see these things as we intended to see. But then we go away and we construct our own story, and it's quite a shock when, I don't know, people like Rolf Harris, or maybe Jimmy Savile, though I never particularly liked him. But, when you have people like Rolf Harris who are outed as being, paedophiles, that lovely gregarious Australian man with his didgeridoo, and he was a lovely guy and affable, and made art easy and all those sorts of things. We look at these people and we construct a story, and then when the reality comes out, it can be quite a shock to discover that we've been completely duped either by them or by the PR story that covered them and put them out as put them in a mould and then turn the mould out, and that's what we got,
Yeah. I was brought up with Carly and Jason.
Right. Yeah.
Neighbours.
Yeah, the love story of these two.
And recently they got back together again to do an episode.
They got back together again. She was a mechanic or something.
On the show.
Yeah. We all like a happy ever after story. It ties up the loose ends, doesn't it? It makes it feel we can smile and we can relax and we go, oh, that's nice. They got back together and that's lovely. Or even if they didn't actually get back together as a couple, but were met up and were friendly and everything was nice. We like the loose ends tying up. We don't want somebody to be walking into the sunset and getting eaten by sharks. We like the whole thing that is a nice tied up with ribbons and bows. But I think the whole thing, talking about what it is when a celebrity dies, the fact is, again, I reiterate, these people are strangers. So we really don't know anything about Elvis. We really don't know anything about Olivia Newton-John. We don't know anything about whoever it might be who died, Princess Diana, Lady Di, and then it comes out that perhaps she was a difficult person or that whatever it might be. And so all these different little stories come out about, I don't know, the Queen Mother or Princess Margaret or somebody who you admired for a long time, and then you hear afterwards that perhaps it was a story that was being PR'd out, public relationed out to the public to allow them to feel involved with something that was essentially a fairy story.
Yes, especially Prince Andrew too, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I think, again, a lot of people are a bit suspicious of him, but he was tolerated as being the sort of lad about town, and him and his fancy girlfriends, and, the fact that he was off flying all over the place, people sort of perhaps tolerated it with a degree of humour, and, well, what can you expect? He's a lad, But then I think when you start hearing more unfortunate stories about him, then people start eventually turning their mood and saying, right, he's a waste of money, he's a waste of time, and it's very easy to change people's moods. You only need to do that, 2 or 3 examples, and people are off the rails, aren't they, with it? They're saying, no more, not putting up with that anymore, remove his saddle. So I think the British public are very good at allowing and permitting and tolerating a certain level of what you might call bad behaviour, because they can smile and say, oh, again, it's a relatable thing. Most of us have perhaps got a brother or an uncle or a family member or a neighbour who was a bit of a rogue lad and, liked the ladies and liked a good time, and we kind of smile about that. And in the main, I guess a lot of people would sort of say, okay, what can you do and all the rest of it. But I think when they start really taking us to the cleaners, then or behaving in a way that is not amusing anymore, it's completely off the scale, then people say enough already. And I think that is what's happened with Prince Andrew. We're getting a bit fed up of being led by the nose with somebody who clearly has no regard for us at all. But we don't mind if they are. If they are, they kind of, there's certain rules, aren't there? They're unspoken that we're all supposed to just sort of go along with, and it's about respect and tolerance and things like that.
So how can we learn from these lessons?
How can we learn this lesson?
Yeah, how can we learn from these lessons?
I think the thing is that I think if we understand what's going on, then that's okay. I think when a famous person dies, it's okay to know that, to acknowledge that I'm very upset, but actually, hang on a minute, let me pause for a minute. I never met Princess Di or whoever it might be. I never met her. I'm grieving for, we're often grieving for a part of ourselves. So somebody may never have really got over the death of a close relative. They may have, their mum may have died, but they had to keep going because they were keeping the rest of the family going. They were supporting the young kids. They were helping dad get through because he was devastated too. So there can be roles that sort of distract us away from taking care of our own personal needs, our own personal loss. And so sometimes doing, sort of grieving almost by proxy, which is what I'm talking about here, where if somebody dies who you've never met, you don't know, but you're upset because they've died, then it's a way of distancing yourself, but allowing yourself to go through those emotions in a sort of slightly distanced way, but you're allowed to process those feelings and the depth of devastation that people were feeling for Princess Diana, because there were so many layers to the story. The wronged young bride, the young girl who got taken away, the older man who was still keeping his mistress on the side, all those different things, the perceived grooming of her, where she was swept along by this 30-year-old man and taken along as some sort of young girl, young bride to the slaughter almost, all those layers of story that got people's emotions incredibly inflamed. And so people were angry on her behalf, people were upset on her behalf, and I think a lot of that linked in, and you can understand it, but we're going along with everything that we've read and seen, because we're almost feeling they're a part of our own family, a part of our own lives, because often, you hear of people, don't you, who are walking down the street and they see a soap opera star or film star or something, and they go, hello. I've done it myself, because the area I live in, we've got a lot of soap operas. I live nearby Granada, and you're walking down the street and you might often go, oh, hi, how are you? And they smile back and they say hello, and then afterwards you realise, oh, it wasn't my friend or my neighbour, it was somebody off the telly. And they accept that. They know that because we see them so often, we're almost thinking they're part of our, that we recognise them. They're our family, they're our neighbour, they're somebody we see regularly, but actually they're not somebody we see regularly, and they don't recognise us. But they become a part of our family because of the storyline, because we see them so often, we perhaps relate to them, and you hear of soap opera stars and people like that getting stalkers and being followed because of a storyline. I know, when one of these soap opera stars had a particularly cruel, nasty part to play, he was getting hate mail and, possibly even death threats. So we relate to these people on a very personal level, even though in some cases it's just a part they're playing. But in other cases, when we see them regularly, we do relate to them and feel they're parts of our lives. And so that connectivity that we feel with people off the telly or people that we see regularly like that, it is something that we often lose sight of. And again, as I say, if somebody dies, it is a way of us decanting our own feelings and enabling ourselves to go through them from a safe distance, but nonetheless process those feelings in a way that allows them to come out and be acknowledged.
Brilliant. Susan, thank you very much for that.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Every one of us, sooner or later, go through grief. Yes, we have our idols. And sometimes we worship them. Who is your idol?
Who is your idol?
It could be your wife.
It could be your wife.
It could be your mum,
It could be
dad.
your mum, dad.
It could be anybody.
It could be anybody.
But just remember
tonight.
If you've fallen out with
somebody,
make sure you repair that
relationship
before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you.